When my grandfather passed away, he left behind more than memories. He left me a stretch of land deep in the woods. It wasn't glamorous. No fancy buildings, no tourist spots. Just acres of trees, a lake, and a little cabin where he used to take me fishing. At the time, I was young, broke, and still trying to figure out my life. I told myself I'd get back to it one day, but life kept me busy. For nearly a decade, I barely visited. I was living in the city, working long hours, and the property became a distant thought. Then one morning, I received a call from an old family friend who still lived near the area. His words froze me. "You need to come down here. They've built cabins. Lots of them. 20 at least." My heart sank. "What do you mean they?" "The HOA. Some new development group came in and started building rentals right on your land. Acting like they owned the place, I couldn't believe it. My grandfather's land wasn't just legally mine. It was part of my family's story. To think strangers were profiting from it without even asking was a slap in the face. I immediately started digging through my old files. Deed papers, inheritance documents, property maps. It was all there, yellowed with age but still official. I packed them into a folder like weapons, because that's exactly what they were. Driving back into town after all these years felt strange. The roads looked smaller, the trees older. But when I pulled up near the property, my jaw dropped. Where my grandfather's quiet woods once stood, a row of shiny rental cabins stretched across the land. A bold HOA sign out front read, "Private Community. No trespassing." My blood boiled. I parked my car at the edge of the property and stepped out, clutching the folder of documents like armor. The air smelled of pine and fresh paint, a sharp contrast to the anger boiling inside me. I could see the cabins clearly now, neatly aligned, gleaming in the sunlight. Each one looked brand new. And for a moment, I felt a sickening mix of awe and rage. I marched straight to the main office, where a few HOA representatives were lounging, sipping coffee, clearly proud of their handiwork. One of them, a tall man with a smug grin, noticed me and waved lazily. "Can I help you?" he asked, his tone dripping with superiority. "Yes," I said firmly. "You can start by explaining why there are 20 cabins built on my inherited land without my permission." His smile faltered. "Your land? Are you saying you own this property?" I pulled the folder from my bag and slapped it on the desk. "Here. The deed, the inheritance papers, maps, every legal document proving this land belongs to me." The room went quiet. One of the staffers muttered, "Well, paperwork can be tricky." "Tricky?" I echoed, my voice rising. "This isn't tricky. This is theft. You've built on property that isn't yours. You've profited off something that belongs to my family. And now, I want every single cabin accounted for, along with a full explanation of how you thought this would go unnoticed." They shuffled papers nervously, avoiding eye contact. I could feel their arrogance start to crack. I realized that they had assumed I would be absent forever, that I would never come back to check on my grandfather's legacy. But I was here, and I wasn't leaving until justice was served. The HOA staff exchanged uneasy glances, their confident smirks fading. One woman finally spoke up, her voice trembling slightly. "Look, we had permits. We thought the land was zoned for development. Nobody told us it was privately inherited." I raised an eyebrow, holding back my frustration. "You thought? You assumed. That's your justification for building 20 cabins without asking the rightful owner?" The tall man leaned back in his chair, attempting to regain composure. We're just following procedure. We didn't mean to. Didn't mean to? I cut him off sharply. You profited off my family's land. You assumed that because I wasn't here, you could act like you owned it. That's not procedure. That's theft and negligence combined. One of the younger staffers fidgeted nervously with a stack of papers. There might be a way to settle this. Maybe you'd consider some compensation. I shook my head, my patience thinning. Compensation? This isn't about money. It's about respect for my family, my inheritance, and the law. Every step you took, every permit you claimed, can be challenged when the rightful owner is present. That's me, and I have the documents to prove it. Their attempts at rationalizing were falling apart. Their arrogance was cracking, and it was exhilarating to see. They had built their empire on the assumption that I would remain absent forever. But I had returned with evidence, records, and the determination to reclaim what was mine. I want an immediate halt on all construction, I continued, my voice calm but resolute. And I expect a full accounting of every cabin, every contractor, and every dollar spent on this land. I will not negotiate until all unauthorized work is addressed. The office was silent. They hadn't expected me back. And now, every single plan they had counted on was unraveling before their eyes. I opened my folder on the office table, spreading the documents across the surface like a weapon of truth. Deeds, inheritance papers, historical maps, surveys, everything meticulously recorded over decades. Every page told the same story. This land had been legally in my family's name for generations. The tall man swallowed hard, glancing nervously at the papers. We didn't realize these documents existed. I tapped the folder. Not realizing doesn't give you the right to build 20 cabins on someone else's property. Every permit you claimed, every contractor you hired, was done under false assumptions, and I intend to make sure that everyone knows it. The staff shifted uneasily, murmuring to one another. I could see their confidence crumbling as the reality sank in. They had assumed I would never return, that the years of neglect on my part meant they could act with impunity. I've already sent copies of these documents to the county office, I said, my voice steady. And if necessary, I'll take legal action to reverse every unauthorized construction. Every cabin must be accounted for, and every dollar spent without my consent will be documented for restitution. One of the younger assistants looked up hesitating. Miss Carter, Ma'am, we understand. We'll cooperate fully. We didn't anticipate this. Yes, I said, leaning forward. That's because you assumed no one would ever challenge you. But here I am, and I will ensure my family's legacy is protected. The room fell silent, except for the sound of shuffling papers and nervous whispers. Their arrogance, built over months of construction and supposed ownership, had finally met its match. Undeniable proof in my hands, and resolve they could not break. For the first time since I returned, I felt a surge of control. The HOA had underestimated me, and now it was their turn to face the consequences. The tension in the office was palpable. The HOA representatives no longer wore smug expressions. Their arrogance had evaporated, replaced by fear and uncertainty. They finally realized that my return wasn't just a surprise. It was a reckoning. The tall man cleared his throat. Miss Carter, we had no idea. We'll halt all construction immediately. Everything will be put on hold until this is sorted. I nodded slowly, keeping my voice calm but firm. Good. I expect full cooperation. Every contractor, every payment, every building permit must be documented and reported. And once that's done, I will decide the next steps regarding this property. The staff shuffled nervously, realizing that the shortcuts, assumptions, and disregard for the law had all been exposed. The woman who had first tried to justify the cabins muttered, "We will make sure everything is corrected." I didn't need to argue further. The evidence in my hands spoke louder than any words could. I had spent hours compiling receipts, deeds, and historical records, not just to prove ownership, but to make sure that the HOA and anyone else who thought they could take advantage of my absence understood the consequences. Later that week, the county office confirmed everything. My property rights were intact. The HOA had no legal claim to a single cabin. Word spread quickly, and contractors who had unknowingly been hired to work illegally began distancing themselves. Driving past the land after the confirmation, I felt a wave of satisfaction. The cabins were still there, but now every structure stood on the rightful terms, my terms. I walked through the property, touching the trees and the soil my grandfather had loved, knowing that I had honored his legacy. Sometimes people assume absence is weakness, but absence can also be preparation. I had returned not only to reclaim what was mine, but to remind everyone that family, legacy, and truth cannot be ignored. The land was mine again, and this time, no one would ever question it. Thank you so much for watching this story till the end. I hope you enjoyed it and maybe even learned something from it. If you'd like to hear more stories like this, full of life lessons, drama, and emotions, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you'll never miss an update. Your support means the world, and it helps me keep bringing you more inspiring and unforgettable stories. Stay tuned because more amazing stories are on the way.